Hi, everybody. I think today is Thursday. Happy Thursday. It's been a super busy week, so I'm lost in time. But I'm Juliet. I'm super excited to have you all here. If you are via LinkedIn, YouTube, or 80 Plus, and you are here to watch us, I'm so excited. We are on week 5 of our job readiness support space, and it's been super powerful. I've been loving all the guest speakers and all the amazing information. I would say today is one of my favorite topics. It's been one of the most important tools for me until today for getting my first UX job, to doing a lot of the podcast, my YouTube channel, and definitely a lot of what Cherry on Tech is today is because of networking. And I hope that this is going to be as interested and as a wonderful, I know that is going to be, because another, again, I say this every time, but every single guest speaker is so good. So I have to say, Gabs, welcome. Happy to have you here today. How are you?
Thanks, Juliet. I'm so excited to be back and hanging with the Cherry on Tech community. It's one of my favorite spaces in the tech scene.
Yes, love it. Oh, I lost. Okay, I lost you. No, I'm here. Can you
Okay,
hear me?
I'm here.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Oh, I don't know what happened. Anyway, as many, no, I think it was my headphones. Anyway, as many of you know, most of the guest speakers that I've been bringing until today are part of the Cherry and Tech community, a volunteer organization that empower underrepresented genders to get into tech. And Gabs have been like so powerful in so many aspects that is like, I have to bring you so you can make people happy. I think just see if you make me happy anyway. So I'm not going to talk anymore. I'm going to give you the floor for all of you. I forgot to ask you this, but I've been telling everybody they can write your comments and questions on the chat. So make sure if you are in YouTube, make it in the comments. I will see them. If you're in LinkedIn, write down the questions. I will see them, and at the end, I will pass it out to you if that works.
Yeah, fabulous.
Perfect. So don't forget to write your questions, and the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, more questions, the better. We want this to be interactive, so throw them in there. So I'm super excited to spend some time with you all today. As Juliet mentioned, my name is Gabs, and I am a product manager turned entrepreneur who had a really long and windy career before I even landed in tech. And so much like Juliet mentioned, a lot of networking and relationships are how I've built the career and businesses that I have. And so when she asked if I could come share this with you, I was really excited because let me tell you, I am a massive introvert. So when I started building a business and a career in tech, and people said I had to go to these networking events where I would just walk in a room full of people and start introducing myself, it scared the living daylights out of me. It's not something that I wanted to do. And so I'm really excited to share with you my kind of fun way of networking where it doesn't feel so overwhelming or feel like it's taking on, really a stressful situation for you, and that it's more fun and a part of the really fun part of building your career. So let's dive in. I call this workshop the Confident Introduction because I really want you to find yourself in a place of confidence as you go in and start networking, whether that is looking for sponsors or potential employment agreements or potential employers. I want you to feel really confident as you have those conversations. So let's dive into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is bursting a myth around networking. I think so many times we have this picture that networking looks kind of like what we have on the screen, where you're in the middle and all of your networking activities is a one direction outward activity. And when you think about networking, especially in today's day and age, it really comes in many forms. So you do have those traditional networking activities where it's meetups or going to, there's a lot of tech communities now where they host sessions that you can go sit in and learn from. So there's a lot of networking that happens in those events, and that's that physical exchange of names and energy. But there's also networking on LinkedIn. That's how I found Cherry on Tech. And so there's digital networking now, which is handled very differently than we used to when you talk about in person. And then when you think about interviews or coffee chats or just people that you have met and decide to have a conversation with, all of these are forms of networking. And so traditionally, we've approached these as these kind of singular direction activity, but really that's not necessarily the case. Because in addition to it, we've also been taught that networking is only successful by the law of numbers. So you think, okay, I'm going in the room. I need to meet as many people as possible. So let me get started. And then you start stressing yourself out of like, did I meet enough people? Have I exchanged enough names? But really, what I want us to think about when it comes to networking is that networking is something that's actually intentional. And so it doesn't have to be this one directional, as many as possible connections. If you think about it, your networking activities are actually going to start to compound. They're going to start to build upon each other. So, for instance, Juliet and I got connected from another shared connection that we have. So that was an intentional networking where someone else met with her, thought I would be a great connection, and then connected us. And so I want you to think about your networking like that it's opening up many, many doors. And then each person in your network has more doors that they can open. So it starts to become this compounding effect, much like interest. So that way it'll start to build upon each other and your network will start growing more and more rapidly as well. So I focus on confidence for networking of introductions because there's a lot of reasons. But one, there is a very direct correlation to your career progress and your confidence. So as we're here today talking about job readiness, I think it's really important that we talk about confidence as a way to do that. And so when you start with yourself, this confidence that you build just with your own eyes, ears, beliefs in yourself, that starts to carry you through life and through your career and opens up other doors. Because when you have this confidence in yourself, whether you think it or not, you're actually networking everywhere you go. That confidence becomes really magnetic. And so you may just be in the grocery store and someone strikes up a conversation just based upon how you carried yourself. And before you know it, you may be talking to someone who would be an incredible partner on a project that you're working on, or who may work at a company that you've been dying to get an introduction to. So you really want to leave that open because the networking and confidence extends far beyond your career. But it really affects how you show up for yourself and how you show up in your life. And so we're going to talk through that today and get started. And so I like to think of networking as a 3-step process. And we're going to start doing some workshopping as we go through this. So if you're listening live or if the recorded version, go ahead and grab pen and paper if you have it near you so we can get started and you can start to take some action from today's session. So 3 steps to networking is 1, enter the room. Now, this may be a virtual room, it may be a physical room, but preparing yourself to know you're going to enter the room. And so getting yourself confident to know what you're getting ready to step into really helps because now you've set the tone with yourself of where you're going and why. Networking can feel overwhelming. It's filled with new people and places, and also a lot of unknowns. So the reason I make this a 3-step process is so that way you can start with what you do know, that there are 3 simple steps. So we're going to 1, enter the room. 2, we're going to introduce yourself. So that might be a few times over in the same room, but plan on introducing yourself. And then 3, you're going to think about how you're going to nurture those connections. So now when you're doing either virtual or physical networking, you can take these 3 steps with you and have a goal in mind and take some of the unknowns out of the process. Okay, so let's start with step number 1, is entering the room. Now, we can just say, okay, I committed to going to this meetup. I'm going to this meetup Thursday night at 6. But you may just be aimlessly wandering in because you decided to sign up for something, but you haven't really set an intention for why you're going there or what your goal is. So when you think about entering the room, I want you to enter with an objective and have an intro question. So I think about this intro question as maybe you've seen them in meetings as icebreakers, but what is the thing that when someone walks up and talks to you, or when you start a conversation with someone, what are you going to say to them? So for an interview, I think about that as a networking situation. What is your objective when you enter the interview room? Likely it's to leave an impression. So what is the impression that you want to make? Have you decided that and set that tone for yourself? What's a simple intro question that you can use in an interview that helps to leave that impression? One that I will tend to turn to because it sets the tone of, I want to know you as a person and not just as someone who works here, is, what's the number one thing that you're proud of this week? And that will probably tell you a lot about, one, what excites them, but two, how do they celebrate? How do you see excitement and proud shine on their face? Now, if you're going to a networking event, maybe your objective for networking is to meet 3 new people. So in this case, you already have that set in your mind. So if you get in there and you've met 3 really great connections that you plan on following up with afterward, you've instantly given yourself permission to leave the room whenever you're ready, because you've had an objective and you met that objective, and now you can leave when you're ready. One question that I absolutely recommend, especially if you're going to in-person networking events, is there's usually someone who's checking you in at the door, or at least welcoming you as you come in. I always like to start with, hi, I am Gabs, and I'm looking to connect with other insert blank, whatever it may be. So if you're looking to connect with other designers, other developers, other people in product, other women in tech, whatever it may be, set that stage and tell them who you're looking to meet with. And then you can follow up that question with, who should I meet in the room? Or who do you think I should connect with in the room that falls in that category? And this is really great because, one, it helps minimize that aimless wandering that you need to do around the room, just trying to find a break into a conversation. But two, what I have found is when I ask this question, oftentimes the person who's leading the session will actually walk me up to the person that they think I should meet or that I should be introduced to. So that takes another layer of stress off, because not only are you meeting with people who are going to meet your objective, but you've also been given that introduction and introduced into a conversation that you can naturally pick up and keep having. So I will pause there for a second for step 1 before we go into some more details. How's everyone doing? Any comments coming up or questions?
Not yet, but I love it. I feel like having that intention and having the help, if someone can help me to meet people, I love it. Yes.
Yeah, I figured this out by accident, and then I was like, filing that away, that will go with me forever in every room.
Such a great idea, and it's not that scary because they're already saying hi to us and they're there to help us. So I feel like, love this.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple extra steps. I like to think of these as a workflow when it comes to setting myself up for success in step 1. So when we're going in to enter the room, we have to know where we're starting, so that way we can have a successful journey for this particular networking session. So I think one of the things that's really important when it comes to your confidence in being able to confidently introduce yourself in a room is know what your people skills and weaknesses are. For me, it is going into large rooms. If you were to put me in a room with 10, 15 people, I could make my way around, talk to everyone, not a problem. Put me in a room of 50 and suddenly I want to hide in a corner. And so knowing that about myself, one, it helps me be a little bit more selective about rooms that I'm going into. But two, it also gives me that mental checkpoint with myself of how am I going to feel when I walk into this room? Maybe I need to dress up a little bit more because that's going to make me feel better. Or maybe I need to bring a friend with because it's going to make me feel more confident or more stable as I walk into a larger room. So whatever it is, know what your weakness is so you can go ahead and combat that right out of the room. The next is having clarity on your goals. So we talked a little bit about this, right, with the objective, but what are you looking to do when you make these connections? It's perfectly okay if you go in a room and it's like, hey, I'm new to a city or I'm new to this group. I just want to simply meet the people that are in the group. Wonderful. But also, you may know that you're going in there and you're looking to have one-on-one connections, or you're looking to learn from someone who's already doing the job that you're looking to do. So whatever your clarity is that you need to make for the goal and the reason you're walking in that room, go ahead and set that tone with yourself before you even step foot in it. And then finally, have a clear call to action and desire. The reality is humans need guidance and we need to be told what to do sometimes. So the more you feel comfortable giving it for exactly what you are desiring and what you want your connections that you make at this event to do, the easier this is going to become for that connection to actually be beneficial in your network. So this is not going to be as easy as simply throwing a call to action up in your product or on your website when you want someone to sign up for it. But think about it when you're talking to someone personally, much like when you walk in that first room and that you have someone who's greeting you and you say, I am here to meet X, who should I meet? That's a simple call to action that helps that connection understand what they should do as you're building your network. And the more you set this tone, people will also do it back to you. So they may say, oh, I'm actually looking for someone to sit on my board. Do you know anyone? And so it helps to make that relationship mutually beneficial. Okay, so just remember for step one, as you're kind of brainstorming and writing this down, you're going to walk into the room. So what are the weaknesses that hold you back? What is the goal you want to do or goals you want to accomplish while you're in that room? And what is that clear call to action that you're desiring to happen as you build your network? All right, let's jump into number 2. So the next step is introduce yourself. And I'm sure you're rolling your eyes at me. You're like, yes, Gabs, I understand. I have to walk in there and tell people what my name is. But I want you to take this a step further. I want you to introduce yourself with a personal brand statement and carrying that call to action forward. So we're going to get into how to make this personal brand statement here in just a second. But I want you to think about the introduction of yourself in this room is just like having an elevator pitch for your product or a service that you're selling. So have this elevator pitch down. And that's why step 1 is so important, because for the particular networking you're getting ready to do, you know exactly what your goals and your desires are. So you want to make sure that your introduction aligns with that. And once you've practiced or prepared yourself with this elevator pitch, now you're able to be ready to go and have a goal that is clear, memorable, and actionable, so that way when you're introducing yourself, people remember who you are. So even if there's not someone or something immediately in the room that they can help you with, when they get home or they have another interaction later on in the week, you're going to pop in their mind and they're going to say, oh, I forgot. I'm supposed to introduce Juliet to Susie in my network. Let me do that right now. And so that's one of those really important pieces is your elevator pitch and introduction of yourself clear, memorable, and actionable. So how do we write this personal brand statement? So first, I want to say, take the pressure off of yourself. This does not have to be perfect. You are actually going to change this over and over and over. So it's actually a good reminder. The more networking you do, the more comfortable and confident you will be at it. But in this networking with your personal brand statement, change it up for 1, the room that you're going in and what your goal is in that room. But 2, see how it lands as you start to introduce yourself. What feels really clear to you because you know yourself and your story very well may not necessarily feel very clear to someone who's listening to it. So the more that you can practice this, the more you'll be able to dial it in. So the very first part of your personal brand statement is, who are you? Beyond just your name, I want you to include a little personality. So maybe for me, it's, my name is Gabs and I love to help women chase big dreams. That tells you a lot about me and my mission and what I'm doing. Even though you don't understand how or why, it's something that makes you perk up and go, okay, let me listen to this a little bit closer, or let me see what else she has to say, because I actually have questions around what that means. And then next, I want you to think about what's so special about you. We are all unique and individual human beings. So if you were a superhero, what would you be known for? And how do you add that to the pieces of the introduction that you're adding in your personal brand statement? And then third, if you had a complete and total magic wand, what does the future look like for you? So we know that you may be feel like you're being looked at through a microscope right now, especially if you're in the active job search in our space right now. It can be a little bit crazy or a little bit of uncertainty. But the one thing that I hear a lot when I talk to recruiters about candidates is we thought that they had skill, but they didn't carry themselves as an authority, or they didn't feel like they could step up and lead the team. And so really think about that when it comes to your future goals, that maybe you're not going for a leadership position right now or looking to connect with someone who's in a leadership position right now, but do you carry yourself confidently enough that someone could feel like they could trust you to throw in and take over and lead? And so there's also a little piece of this that I add is some social proof as a good bonus. So what makes you the person that's so amazing at your superpower and the ability to transform the future? So I always say, is it that I've helped hundreds of women, or I completed Cherry on Tech? Like that right there is massive social proof. And also what will happen is if they don't know what Cherry on Tech is, they will likely ask you. So it allows that conversation and that networking to naturally keep happening, because no one hates worse than if you introduce yourself and everyone just kind of stops and stares after everyone's done with the introduction. So this is a good way to help kind of pull the thread and allow that conversation to continue. All right. And then once you have your personal brand statement written and you have why you're going into this room, what you want to accomplish when you get there, the next thing I want you to think about is, how do you nurture the connections that you've made? And this is one of the reasons that I tell you, don't necessarily look at networking as the law of numbers and you have to do so many of them. Because if you can spend a little bit of time after the actual networking happens to nurture those connections, you're going to make your network that much stronger. Because people are not inclined to be action takers, but they are inclined to respond. So if you take the lead on this and start with the action, they will typically respond and be more collaborative in that. So one of the very first pieces that I say is be collaborative when you're nurturing your connections. So there's lots of ways that this can happen. One, maybe in your conversation, they mentioned someone that they want to be connected to you. Do you have someone in your network that you can also connect them to? If they host a blog or have a podcast or something like that, you can offer to write guest articles for them, come on their podcast, lead a workshop, whatever it may be. That's kind of probably part of your superpower. Is there something that you can share with them that helps be collaborative in their space as well? And then the very easiest thing is follow them on LinkedIn or Instagram or wherever they kind of direct you to as part of your networking conversation, and deliver value in the comments of the things that they're sharing. Okay, next is, and I see the question about personal brand statement. We will get to that in just a second, then we can talk through that. Thank you for sharing your question. So the next part is going to be sending them resources. This is one of my ultimate favorite ways to deliver value and continue the conversation. If you got into a conversation over your networking event or even on LinkedIn where you're like, oh my gosh, we listened to this podcast and it was incredible, send them the next episode of the podcast or another podcast that you listen to that has a very similar vibe, and let them know, hey, I thought of you in our conversation when I saw this episode. Maybe it is a book recommendation, maybe it's a LinkedIn post, whatever it may be. But if you send them something that stands out and reminds them of the conversation you had, again, that's another way to stay memorable. And that's another way for them to remember the conversation you had and anything that you all agreed to from a connection and outreach perspective. And this allows you to kind of keep that conversation going. So how do you follow up with the conversation that you had in person or over chat and move it into a continued conversation. And I find it really interesting. I think, especially on LinkedIn, I see this happen a lot where we'll be going back and forth on LinkedIn, back and forth on LinkedIn. And then finally it's like, okay, do you want to just like do a coffee chat? Or if we're in the same city, do you want to like meet up and grab a coffee? And so it's so nice because by the time you have that one-on-one time with this person, you've sent so many things kind of back and forth that are valuable to both of you. You already feel like you have this great connection and this great meetup. And so when you actually see each other one-on-one, it tends to be a really powerful conversation. And then who knows where it goes from there. So that's always great. And then the other piece is I like to say is make the first move. Sometimes if you're asking, if your conversation takes you where they're going to connect you with someone else, that's great. And they may make that first move. There's nothing wrong with it. But I would say, within 24 to 48 hours, if you can, follow up with them, deliver value, and then tell them what's going to happen next. So remember, us as humans, we need some guidance and extra support. And so one of the examples that I use is like, hey, Juliet, I loved our chat about helping founders get out of their own way when it comes to their product strategy. Here's a great LinkedIn post that I saw today that has some great advice that I've personally used. And then I can say to them, do you want to continue our conversation? What does Wednesday look like for coffee? Or what does Wednesday look like for a one-on-one chat? And so this is that part where humans are inclined to respond. They're like, wow, this person remembered me. They remembered the conversation we had. They maybe remembered the thing I was struggling with and something that I could share that could help them. And they're taking the first move by setting the tone to get something scheduled. I simply just have to say yes, or Wednesday's not great, or no. But either way, you're encouraging them to respond because you're leading and finishing the conversation with a question. Okay. Chera, I know you mentioned about a personal brand statement. Let me pull that slide back up just so that way we can look at it together as we talk about this. So when you talk about who are you, what's your superpower, what are your future goals, and then what is your social proof? I can give you mine as an example. So my name is Gabs. I love to help women chase their biggest and boldest dreams. My superpower is that I have launched 3 businesses since going out on my own because I finally found what my dream and my passion are. And I want to continue to help other women launch their businesses as well. And so that's one of the ways that's like social proof is I've done 3 businesses in 3 years. What are my future goals is to continue to help other women launch their businesses. What's my superpower? It's that I've done it myself. I've walked the walk so I can talk the talk. And who am I? My name and kind of what my mission and what my power is. Is that helpful, Chera, or is there anything you want to maybe brainstorm? I'm happy to brainstorm together on this call. All right, I'll keep rolling, Julia. If that comes in, we can jump back over to it. So I want to leave you with this quote, just because I think not only does it not just focus on workplace culture as a whole, but it focuses on finding the best place for you. So specifically when we talk about job readiness and figuring out maybe where you're going to apply next, or what type of industry you want to move into, or what type of role you want to look at, is talking about what makes you thrive, what makes you the best version of you. And so one of the biggest things I want to impart on you today is that absolutely no one can answer that question but you. Not society, not your upbringing, not your past, not what you thought you wanted to do and then you tried it and it didn't work. Whatever it may be, I want you to know that you have the power to decide what makes you the best you. And oftentimes that's a combination of environment, the people that are around you, those kind of things. But with this quote, I just really loved was one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself is a good network. Surround yourself with positive, supportive people who believe in you and your dreams. And so I share that with you because I think it's something we all have to remind ourselves, especially once we land that next job. We tend to kind of forget about networking, or we tend to forget about our network in and of itself and continuing to nurture it. And so I want you to really spend some time thinking about where's your network at now? Is your network the kind that's supporting you in your dreams? If not, that probably needs to be one of your top goals and objectives when you look at the networking that you're going to do, is making sure that you've set yourself up in a place where you do have a network that can surround you and support you, and help open doors for you. And I think a lot of times we say that and people think, well, that's using my network, just to get introductions. But when we talk about this reciprocation and being collaborative, it means that we're all doing it for each other. And that is what is the most important. So just making sure that you're continuing to build on your network and support yourself, and just continue to chase after your dreams and give yourself permission that they may change, which means how you're going to network and the introductions that you need to be making are also going to change. All right, Julia, I think we wrapped up a little bit early, but I'm here if we have any questions or things that we want to go into more.
Love it. Oh my goodness. I feel like this is so good. I do have a lot of questions. If I can give people some space for them to start thinking about questions. But I feel like something that always come to mind about networking is, hey, I applied for this job, and the suggestion that everybody gives you, yes, is like, okay, so you apply for a job and then connect with someone in that company and organization. And I feel like always people come with that idea, oh, but then is this too late? When should I network with people in that company?
Oh, I love that. So I will say, I think the earlier the better, especially if you can do it before your application, for a couple of reasons. One, you may meet with this person and realize either A, I don't want to work with that person, like they're not my jam, they're not my vibe, or B, they may tell you something about the culture of this company that you're willing to say, no, that actually isn't a job that I want, or no, let's be real, I don't want to spend 10 interviews to decide that that's not the company I want to work at. So sooner the better, but I also know that that's not always realistic. So one of the ways, if you are going to connect with someone, is I don't necessarily think that you should right out of the gate tell them you've interviewed or applied for a position at their company, but see if they have posted anything recently, or if they're in maybe the same job that you've applied for. Go ahead and start with questions around them and things you could learn from them. So a couple examples of that could look like, hey, I also see you're in design. I'm just getting started, or I just graduated. What would you go back and tell yourself in the first year of doing design? And someone's far more likely to reply and start to have that conversation than it is to say, oh, hey, Julia, I applied for a role at your company. Can you make sure they interview me? And it's like, I don't even know you from Adam. I can't help you with that.
I love that. And I feel like this is what always happens. And I think this is what people feels bad. Connecting with people is like, oh, I really need you. Just help me now. But I'm going to pause this thought for a second, because I'm going to share what Cheryl just replied. I think what happened usually with the live stream is that usually we are ahead and they're a little behind. So it takes a little for them to reply. But I'm going to pretend to be Cheryl. I'm a third-year graphic design student, and as someone without any, oh no, this is a question. Oh, I thought that you were giving me your brand statement. And it's like, okay, we are going to, no, sorry. Okay, she has a question. They have a question. What is the question? I wrote it. Okay, I'm a third-year graphic design student and someone without any professional design branding experience. Wondering if there any tip finding social event or networking moving forward. Love it.
Ooh, good one. So I think, right now there are a lot of in-person events starting to happen again. And I think we're seeing them pick up a lot. So honestly, I would start there. There is something about, exchanges of energies in a physical room that just cannot be replicated online, no matter how hard you try. So Meetup usually has great ones, but honestly, at this point, you could probably even go to ChatGPT or Gemini and say, I'm looking for meetups in my area around these things, and let it go find resources for you. The other, if you're looking for targeted places, co-working spaces tend to always be hosting these kinds of professional events, and they usually are bringing in external guest speakers and things like that as well. So I would say start there, see where you can find some rooms to get into. And traditionally, especially in the tech space, we love newbies coming in, right? We love to connect and learn and meet with new people. And so I think that's a safe space for you to go in and say, I'm a recent graduate, or I am getting ready to graduate. help me, right? Tell me what you didn't know, or tell me what you wish someone had taught you. And I think that will really open the doors to a lot of conversations.
And I have this question. There is some questions coming up, but I wanted to jump in a little bit because you were mentioning how we met. And even though it sounds like, oh my goodness, how lucky I am, I'm so lucky to meet you guys. But didn't come because of luck. Like I keep putting myself out. It's like, oh hey, I need people, I need guest speakers. How can you help me? I think you will be great to this. And this is like you start connecting with people and saying, this is what I want and this is what I'm looking. And people start thinking about what I want, like you were mentioning, and then they start connecting us. So I feel like this is what I love about networking. Yes, it's not easy. And you don't get good at it, but not doing it. That is the hard part. Yes, you need to go out and practice and practice. I'm not good at networking because naturally it's in me. I just been putting so much effort on it to be myself, to see how my storytelling goes, how my brand statement works, and if it not works, so with a lot of practice then. And I love this. I'm going to do this question before we move into the questions that we have here. A lot of people that are new into the room, are new into tech or any space, is like, what do I have to offer? I'm brand new in this and I don't know anything. Yes.
Oh, such a good one.
Because it's like, oh, no one wants to talk to me. I'm new. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So what I will say is a couple things. When we touched on a little bit, like those of us in the tech space love new talent coming in the room. It can obviously be scary. It's change, but also you're learning best practices that we didn't learn, right? A lot of us, if we're, I don't know, probably what would you say, Julia, like 7+ years into tech, a lot of us learned the hard way, learned on the job. There wasn't as much formal education and training as there is today. So I think in a lot of ways, you have so much to offer because you have more formalized training than we ever did. And you probably have access to more resources than we ever did. So we may not even know that those resources exist. So you can ask questions if there's like a book or a certain design style or development style or something like that you really are leaning into. Open the conversation with that. Like, I'm really into, I don't know, I'm not a designer, so don't let me make something up, but like, I'm really into having purple buttons on every screen because that's where I learned from this, super special designer. And you just start that conversation with them, right? And they may say, no, I disagree, or I do agree, or I had never heard that before. But either way you want to think about it is, you don't have to lay it all out on the table at the very beginning to make someone want to talk to you. It's like a thread. You just got to pull a little bit with every time you open your mouth, right? It's just a little bit of thread to make that conversation keep going.
I feel people just get good. Again, this is not about you're going to go onto an event and it's like, boom, oh, well, some people is so good, naturally. But the rest of us, we need to go and practice and see what it works for each of us, depending our communication style. Like we are like, English is my second language. So maybe how do I talk to people who speak Spanish? That could be like a good way to connect with others. Again, there is so many different ones, but I love this. Thank you. Okay, this is Xiaoxin. I hope that I'm saying your name properly. Hi, Gabs and Juliet. I'm a recent graduate of UI and UX design, currently looking for a full-time or internship. It is appropriate to reach out to startup CEOs or founders via email on LinkedIn.
Oh, I don't think that there's anything wrong with it. But what I will say is think about what's the reason you're reaching out. If you're reaching out strictly to say, I'm a recent graduate looking for a job, they're going to say, great, I get 700 of these emails a day. Good luck to you, right? And so I also think, and as hard as it is, we have to take into, reality, the state of our industry right now is a little bit disruptive and a little bit upside down. And so things are not, what they've always used to be. But if you're reaching out for these same kind of reasons we talked about, right? Do you have questions? Are you curious about them or their story or how they became a CEO or a founder? Or like one of the things I find really powerful is if you're a user of their tool or their product or their service, and you reach out and say, I'm a user and I looked at it from a design lens and this was a really great experience for me. Sometimes it's not a really great experience, and that's also helpful to them. You have to think the further up the food chain you're going with who you're talking to or outreaching, the further they likely are away from the day-to-day decisions of like what's going into design or what's going into the product. So if you can help them keep an ear to the ground and share something, I think that that's really valuable. And that goes back to that collaboration of that's opening a door for you to have a conversation, but you're also helping them. And at the same time, you're showcasing some of your skills right out of the gate. Now, I've had one time that I did that. That's always worked well for me, but I had one time that I did it. And I always love to share this story because I think it's hysterical because any of us in this industry we can picture the CEO. My husband was watching like a football game and there was a commercial where they aired the commercial with the HTML tags still showing, like they didn't clear the text, right? So I'm like, rewind it. I have to take screenshots of this and email this guy. Like he probably spent so much money on this commercial and the founder was on the commercial. So I find him, I send him screenshots. I'm like, hey, FYI, this made it into the commercial. And he replied, he's like, yeah, we meant to do that. And I was like, okay, well, fine. That's what I get for helping you. But beyond that, it's always opened up doors to great conversation. And some of those people I have become clients of mine that I've gone on to help them with the things that I identified that we talked with.
And I feel like with networking and let me hold this thought for a second. What about if you don't talk with the CEO and you just talk with someone or connect with someone that you will have more in common, and that person will refer you to the next one and the next one to the next one. So I feel like always people is like, oh, I connected with every single HR, with all the hiring people in this company. No one wants to talk to me. But it's like, have you talked to someone that maybe I always put the same exact, oh, this person, I know that they do CrossFit. I do CrossFit. Or, oh, this person lives in Colombia or they're going to Colombia. I'm Colombian, so I can give you some suggestions. So it's like, where is this something in common that I can reach this person and I know that we can talk, and then I can ask questions, and then maybe they can refer me to someone else to introduce me into the team. And these could be connections that is not that next week I'm getting a job. And I feel like this is really important to think about networking. It's not, oh, I'm networking is going to equal a job tomorrow. Maybe this could be a partnership. It could be, again, working in projects together, or a job in 2 years. You never know what networking could do for you or what you could do for them in the future too.
Yeah,
and I lost my thought. I don't know. I lost
It's gone now.
Okay.
But no, I think that is a really powerful reminder, especially if you're heavy and active in the job search right now. You're trying to equate, every activity you do to ROI of a job, right? And so that, I think, is the challenging part of networking, is it isn't always that. It's not always a direct correlation. But yes, you just absolutely never know if it's now, 2 years, 20 years. I mean, you just never know what those doors are going to be. And it's that reason why I think you can network in two ways. You can do the law of numbers, and I've tried, right? Where I'm just blast growing my LinkedIn, I'm blast outreaching and emailing, and you can do that. But the memorability and the collaboration that comes from those connections are going to be much less than if I'm intentional with who I'm connecting with and building relationships that way.
Love it. Okay, I have another one for Xiaoxin. Should I directly, yes. Should I directly spread my interest in a job with a resume and ask for a coffee shop, or should I focus on connecting and seeking an opportunity to chat? Which approach is less likely to ignore?
I think I wish I had a direct answer for you. What I will say is I think whoever you're outreaching is going to fall in traditionally one of two camps. One, they don't want to chit chat and they don't want to be BS'd. So like if all you really want is to give them your resume and have a chat about your resume, some people just appreciate you coming out of the gate and saying that. Then there's other people who would more appreciate building a relationship with you first. What I will say is there was a point when I went into business on my own and became a CEO that I would still just kind of talk to any and everyone just to have coffee chats. But eventually I'm limited in time. And so I do have to set some strict standards for myself around how many just open coffee chats I take. And so that's one of the reasons I tend to recommend you focus on building a little bit of a connection and a relationship first. Because yeah, if you tell me you're looking for a job, but also you live in Phoenix like I do, and you also came from healthcare before I did, like I did before I got into product, I'm much more likely to be like, okay, cool. We have a few things in common. We'll have something to talk about on this call other than, can you review my resume and tell me why I don't have a job yet?
I know, I don't do that. And I feel like people forget about networking is just building like any relationship. If you have a friend that you wanna, like a new person that you met and you wanna be friends, you're not just going to ask for a favor the next day. Hey, I need $50. Can you give it to me? Most likely it won't happen. But it's like, hey, I know that you're really into murals. There is an event happening. There is this something. So how do you show interest? It will be really powerful. Basuda, hi Basuda. I'm so happy to see you here. We saw each other today. Anyway, hey Gabs and Julia, this was a great presentation. I have a big imposter syndrome, whatever it comes to networking. I can see that other people can sense that. Do you have any tips of how to grow more confident and sure of myself as a UX professional?
Oh my goodness. Okay. I love this question because I think I have a fairly unique take on imposter syndrome and our inner critics. I actually think that they exist for a reason. And I think that we should treat them like one of our best friends. And I think that, most people say, okay, well, just stop stop feeling like you have imposter syndrome, or just stop acting like you have an inner critic. And I'm like, okay, well, great. But it doesn't really happen that way. If that was how it happened, it wouldn't be there in the first place, right? What I will say is that I think your imposter syndrome or your inner critic is actually asking you questions to force you to pause. And maybe that is, am I in the right room networking? And if you really feel outside of your body in that room, maybe the answer is no. And it's time to go, or it's time to find a different group to network with. Maybe it's I'm in the wrong profession. Maybe it's I'm trying to get the wrong job, or I'm trying to get a job for the wrong reasons. Like whatever it may be, the inner critic is there for a reason. And it's just trying to force you to pause and be aware, pause and be aware with what's going on. And I also think it's perfectly okay for you to be like, yes, Vasuda's inner critic, I got you, but no, we are in the right room. We're going to do this. And that's part of that confidence in yourself is like, did I check in with myself? If this really truly is to the dreams that I want and that I'm chasing after, it's okay to be a little bit uncomfortable. But I recognize you're checking to make sure that I'm not stepping into a risky situation. Basically, that's kind of how I want you to look at it, is like your best friend would say, did you consider all the risk before you did this thing? And sometimes there's times where we tell our friends, yeah, I did. And I still want to make that risky choice, or yeah, I did. And I don't think it's that risky. And I think it's the same way with our imposter syndrome. The other thing I will tell you, Vasuda, is none of us have it all figured out. None of us actually know what we're doing. I mean, most of us who are in, tech at this point in our life, we have figured it out as we have gone. Every product you build is going to be different. Every design you make is going to be different. So like, it's not like we do this repeatable job that's going to be the same thing over and over anyway. So you're always going to be trying something new. You're always going to be trying something different. And so likely every person that you're networking and talking to is in the same boat, where they are just figuring it out every day that they open that laptop.
I think sometimes people, they just have a really good poker face about how they feeling, and they just go and talk. Like, you will think that, I don't know, do I have a face of confidence and I know what I'm talking about? I hope so. But it's not that inside of me, I do it all the time. Again, this is a lot of practicing. And I remember I moved to Canada like 16 years ago. And at that point, I don't want to, I'm really old. At that point, there was these I remember interviewing people on the streets about what they dress, and like taking a photo and like what you dress, what you wear this and blah, blah, blah. And I remember that I wanted to start doing this, and I've been so nervous about asking people in English out of the blue in the streets, hey, can I talk to you about this? And I remember the first time I did it, I was dying inside of me. I felt like I was red and like I couldn't say anything. And the person said, yeah, I would love to talk about what I'm wearing. It's like, okay, this is nice. This is easy. And I feel like this is one of the projects that I do right now. I talk to athletes, I talk about what they do, and I take photos and I do interviews, and I do the same for people who ride motorcycles. But again, I've been pushing myself to do something that I love and is out of my comfort zone, but it have gave me so much love for sharing stories in different ways. I don't know if this has anything to do with this, but I wanted to
No,
share.
absolutely. I mean, and I think that's why, I tend to lean more on you and your dreams and what makes you as your best self when we talk about networking and doing it confidently. Because the reality is if you are out there doing something that you actually don't care about, that like it's just for a paycheck or just to say you have a job or whatever it may be, you're eventually going to run out of steam to keep forcing yourself to show up in it. So I think to your example, Julia, I did something similar when I moved to Phoenix a few months ago. I went to the art festival. I walked around with a literal poster that's like, you're beautiful, your dreams matter. And like, same, I was scared to death, but I was doing it because I wanted to meet more people locally. And I wanted to spread the message of like, this world is not so serious. Like we can walk around and love ourselves and love the world and the people that we're with. Same, I was so scared. I was like, literally like, sweating on the inside, my heart racing. But so many people walked up and were just like, I love your energy, or you're beautiful too, right? Like it just opens that door. And so I think that's a really powerful thing to recognize. If you've done all these other steps and you feel like you should be confident, but something is still missing, you probably need to check in a little bit deeper because something else is disconnected. And it's not just this, I'm hidden behind my imposter syndrome thing. There's probably something a little bit deeper that you need to look at also.
I love this. Thank you so much. Any more questions? Anyone? You still have time to type them in. Come on. I know that it's a little bit behind. Yes, I love this. Thank you so much. Again, one of my favorite topics ever is being so useful and powerful for me. And I wanted to say Basura. Basura did a presentation today. That's why we met today. And it was amazing. It's like, I don't know what you're talking about, Basura. Your work is amazing. You're a great presenter. So sending all the love to you, Basura. Where people can find you, Gabs?
Yeah, so I'm really active on LinkedIn. So you can find me on LinkedIn and then on my website at gabshayes.com. You can connect with me there as well.
Love it. Thank you, everybody. Next week, next Tuesday, I need to still do the event, but next Tuesday, we're doing a whiteboard challenge with Rue. I'm super excited. And after that, we have another 4 events. I'm super pumped with everything that is coming. So keep checking Cherry on Tech LinkedIn or my LinkedIn. I'm always posting all the events. And thank you, everybody, for participating and make this so good. Gabs, love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's so good to see you.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.